Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you happen to be watching this. I hope you're having a wonderful day. As threatened or promised, I want to spend a little time talking about the second option for the paper. It's connecting the themes of the cold dish and either the many deaths of Layla Starr or Hang the Moon. So if I were writing the paper, these are a few of the things that I would be looking for. As always, all the borrowed images and quoted text are used for educational purposes. I'm not trying to monetize this video. I'm just trying to do my best to help my students understand what I'm asking for in an assignment and to help them catch up if they happen to have missed class. Couple of reminders. Number one, everything in the book can contribute to the theme, but it has to be part of a larger whole. So it can't just be one small thing and say that that's the theme. It has to be part of the larger whole, and the big elements of the book, the plot and the characterization, should be a big chunk of what contributes to the theme. Second, I think it's always possible that there will be more than, or there can be more than one theme to a work. We don't always have to center in, there is only one theme. There can be more than one. And so, as we're reading here, it's entirely possible to have two different readings and justify both of them based on what it is we have seen, what we have encountered, what our reading experiences and life experiences are like. With that in mind, one of the things I didn't talk about the other day in class was the idea of some symbols. And it just so happens that Hang the Moon has a flight of geese passing overhead, and we have Sally giving us straight up the lead goose falls back, another takes its place, and the rippling lines close ranks. No fight, no debate, everyone working together, each doing its job. They make it seem so easy. She is getting ready to move ahead. She is moving up the ranks, and there's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of debating. The community isn't necessarily closing ranks, and it isn't very easy. The geese become sort of a stand in for the emotions and experiences she's having. Likewise, Walt starts the book watching geese, he ends the book watching geese, and in this case, we've got the joke from Henry, there's more geese on one side than the other. That's why one side of the V is always longer. But it doesn't necessarily spell it out. But I do think that what's happening here is we're just trying to get Walt to let go, to accept that sometimes there's just not an easy answer and that it's time to move on a little bit. And so if it takes a really crappy joke to do that, and if it takes the geese that are a big part of the book, he's watching them, he thinks about following them south, all sorts of things. The geese are important here, and they give us a hint at perhaps what one of the big themes of the book is. Just kind of let it go. There's two ways I think you can take broad subjects and connect them. And once you've got the broad subjects, I think then you can start thinking about how do we take that broad subject and turn it into a theme. So, first, big broad subject of Hang the Moon was family. And the idea of found family. We are a family. We're mismatched buttons, but we're a family. We're created from pieces that don't go anywhere else. I think it's fair to ask, are Walt, Henry, Vic, Katie, Ruby, are they that kind of family? Are they sort of just a bunch of mismatched buttons that don't go together anywhere else? And so they fit because they got no place else to go. And that's a subject. And then the question becomes, what point is made about found family? Next, if you take a look at the panel, Darius is saying, you don't forget these things. The memories are immortal. Walt says, you do what you could, you do the best you could, and if things turned out or didn't turn out the way you wanted, you let it go. In other words, you should be able to forget perfectly, not have a perfect memory, not have an immortal memory, for lack of a better phrase, stealing from Darius. The question, I think, is at the end, do the books reach the same conclusion even though they start from different premises? The premise Walt has is you forget. The premise Darius has is you can't forget. Do they come to the same conclusion? I would argue that they do. That at the end, Darius has forgotten, and at the end, Darius is moving on in the same way that Walt moves on. In fact, I would argue that at the end, Darius does a better job of moving on than Walt does. Next, I think it's entirely possible to take what I think is a direct statement of theme from the Cold Dish and look at either The Many Deaths of Layla Starr or Hang the Moon and see if that theme is there, or at least elements of that theme are there. The subjects around that theme, are they there? Numbers got in the way of seeing people. Seeing people is important. The relationship between the white community and the African American community, the idea that Abraham is seen only as an African American man, not as a real person, and that he's seen as nothing more than a number. He's one of the African American moonshiners, and that's it, by the white community. On the other hand, almost all of Claiborne County seems to have the same problem. Outsiders are coming in, telling them what's right, telling them what's wrong. They, the residents of Claiborne County, are being seen as numbers. They're not being seen as people. They're just lawbreakers who are moonshining. Never mind the tradition of whiskey in their lives. Never mind that it's the only way that they can turn a profit from the corn that they're growing. They are seen as numbers. They are not seen as people. So you can look at it from either the African American element in Hang the Moon, or you can look at it from the citizens of Claiborne County, all of them, in Hang the Moon. Likewise, you can take that same quotation and look at The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. She has reaped the living, whole generations. But when she sees something as a person, she can't take that one tiny thing. The crow is asking her, do you remember those you took? And he reminds her that now that you're immortal, taking a life, you have to live with that. Because as a mortal, you have to see people. If you don't see people as anything but numbers, you've got to live with that at the end. Likewise, Bardun has the same problem. Okay? Not Bardun, but Darius's family has the same problem with Bardun. They keep him out of the house. He can't come in and use the bathroom. He washes himself off with water, cold water from the well. They see him as a number, as a member of the lower caste. They don't see him as a human being. They don't see him as a person. And in fact, money gets sent because visiting the funerals would be inappropriate. It's not something that they could do. The whole caste system forces Darius and his family, or Darius's family, Darius breaks that rule, to see Bardun as only a number, as a member of a different caste. They don't see him as a person, they don't see him as human. I think there's plenty to write about there if that's the way you choose to go. However, I think that the cold dish also has something else to do with the other books that we've read. Hang the Moon. The title of the book gets explained in the reading. On page 310, I did my darndest to believe my daddy hung the moon and scattered the stars. That meant there were many things I didn't want to see. I've been doing pretty much the same dang thing my whole life. In other words, the belief that the Duke hung the moon blinded her from seeing all of the bad stuff that the Duke was responsible for. So obviously, if you ask the question, did the Duke really hang the moon and scatter the stars, excuse me? The answer is no. He was responsible for a lot of the evil in this book. And so the title is just a reminder that the Duke didn't do what Sally believed he did. The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. I think one can ask the same question. Yes, she dies in book 1, she dies in book 2, she dies in book 3, she dies in book 4. Bardun also dies book 2. There's a death in book 3. Wei dies in book 4. There's a lot of deaths involved in this book. But I think, again, it's fair to ask, is this book really about the deaths? Or is this book really about the lives? And so when you go through this book and think about it, the title, in some ways, is a bit misleading. So let's take a look at the cold dish. First of all, in class, I want to spend some time asking the simple question, what's a cold dish? Where have we usually heard that phrase? What's the connotation of that phrase or the connection we have to that phrase? And like the title, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, and like Hang the Moon, the title gets explained in the body of the work. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Henry says that, and we have this idea of this book is now going to be talking about revenge. The cold dish. The dish best served cold. We're going to deal with revenge here. And so, if revenge is this broad subject, and you're asked to write a paper connecting the themes, and the first place to start is broad subjects before you refine them down into a theme, does revenge play a role in Hang the Moon? And does revenge play a role in The Many Deaths of Layla Starr? In Hang the Moon, I think there's at least 2 instances, and I probably left 3 or 4 out. But the Bonds and the Kincaids are having this feud. There's a tit for tat situation throughout the whole book. Every time the Bonds hurt somebody, the Kincaids fight back. And we have this feud based on 88 acres of good bottomland that the Duke's father allegedly cheated the Bonds' grandfather out of. And so you've got this idea of all of the fighting, everything that goes on. And in fact, the last page of Hang the Moon deals with Sally's effort to hopefully end the feud, to end the cycle of revenge. Also, we have a lot of personal things. Okay? You've got Georgette wanting to get to know the daughter of the woman who destroyed her family. And you've got Gus killing his wife for cheating on him. You've got Georgette keeping the um, um, necklace and not giving it back. And you've got Gus in some ways just using it as a good luck charm. And again, as an act of revenge because it seems like he holds something against Sally as well. And so you got these little acts of personal revenge. You've got these small personal vendettas as well as the larger big family vendettas. And if we go to the many deaths of Layla Starr, once again, we have two levels of vengeance. We start with Layla. She's going to kill a baby because she got fired. And she looks at baby Darius and she is ready to kill him until she finds out his name. This little thing that will destroy everything I've ever worked for my whole, and she is ready to kill him. An act of vengeance to prevent him from inventing immortality. In fact, it's an act of vengeance for an act he has not yet committed. And then Darius, I will find a way for you to keep you from taking any more of us. It's an act of vengeance. You have ruined me. You have ruined my family. I am going to stop you. I am going to have my act of vengeance. I would suggest that you pick one, either the family feud in Hang the Moon or the personal vendetta in Hang the Moon, either Layla's act of vengeance or Kali's act of vengeance in, trying to kill baby Darius, or Darius's act of vengeance as he's trying to stop Kali. But I think the thing to remember, revenge is a dish best served cold. Henry says that. But the Duke didn't hang the moon. The Many Deaths of Layla Starr was as much about the lives as it was about the deaths. So I think it's important to understand that the cold dish is probably not saying revenge is a dish best served cold. It is not trying to say that this is the way one should live, that this is the way one should go about life. I think it's important to take a look at that and understand that, like the previous two, just because the word is in the title doesn't mean that this actual statement is the actual theme. Couple of reminders. Find a subject both works share. Determine how both works make a similar point about that subject. Write the point in a complete sentence. And write the paper showing how both works make the point as written. Hope everybody has a good day. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope one of the prompts works for you. See you all in class on Friday.